Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about a topic. Before I introduce the topic, you can look at my virtual background. It actually leads you to the topic. Okay, I'm going to talk about a topic that many of our buddies are going to talk today, and something very interesting and a popular and in thing. But before we go into the topic, you can see I'm going to talk about something that might be a benefit, angel, decide angel, or maybe a devil. So I'm not sure how this topic going to be. But before we delve into this topic, we're going to hear a conversation. All right, it's a very interesting conversation between myself and my grandmother. We were talking about a specific topic, whether it's really a learning. That specific strategy is going to be a very good learning strategy in acquiring and retaining the mother tongue language skills in children, or whether there are many other strategies that are going to be adding value to the children. So, before we delve into the topic, let's look at this interesting conversation between myself and grandma.
Discover the power of gamification in language learning. While storytelling and TPR have their place, gamification enhances acquisition and retention. Unlock the potential of gamification today. Make language learning fun and effective.
So let's look at the topic properly. The topic is here. The gamification techniques positively enhances the acquisition and retention of mother tongue language skills among children.
Hey, have you heard about using gamification for learning languages?
Yeah, I've heard a bit about it. They say it really helps kids learn their mother tongue better.
Totally. I think it's because when you're playing a game, you're so engaged and motivated to win that you end up learning without even realizing it.
Yeah, that makes sense. But do you think it's like a direct cause and effect thing? Like, does playing games automatically lead to better language skills?
Good question. I think it's more like they go hand in hand. When you're engaged and having fun, you're more likely to remember what you're learning.
True. But I wonder if it works the same for everyone. Like, what if you're from a different cultural background or don't have access to the same technology?
Yeah, that's something to think about. I guess the effectiveness of gamification could vary depending on your cultural, socioeconomic, and educational background.
Definitely. And I read somewhere that the research on this isn't conclusive yet. It might not work the same for all linguistic environments or age groups.
Right. So, while gamification seems promising, we should keep in mind that it might not be a one-size-fits-all solution.
Agreed. It's a cool idea, but we need to consider all these factors before we can say for sure how effective it really is.
So let's look into the topic. What is gamification? And we all know about gamification. Gamification is just leverage the people's natural tendencies for competition, achievement, and rewards to make learning activities enjoyable. That means the students have the joy for learning. All right. And in that process, let's see how this gamification is being applied in language learning. So, can gamification positively enhance the acquisition and retention of mother tongue language skills? Are there any negative impact? There are definitely negative impacts That was what stated by many of our friends in the society. They had this prevailing belief, assumption that gamification is just too much of emphasis on technology. It doesn't give the students the motivation to learn. Instead of learning, they just compete and they just want to get the rewards. So there was overemphasis of technology, and there was not any intrinsic motivation from the children. So these were some of the prevailing beliefs from the society, saying that gamification doesn't enhance the acquisition and retention of mother tongue language skills in a positive way. So let's see how mother tongue skills being enhanced by gamification. We need to see how the gamification is applied to language learning. And another thing is the benefits of gamification in language acquisition. Example, engagement, motivation, and active learning. So when it comes to how the gamification techniques are being applied, firstly is for the language learning apps and platforms. There's a lot of game-based learning in such platform. Secondly, it can really help to progress the students, help to track the students' progress and give immediate feedback. Thirdly, there are challenges and requests for the students to learn the different components of language and to interact with their friends in a very authentic real life situation. So how about these benefits of the gamification in language acquisition? Firstly, there's increased engagement. The students feel very encouraged to interact with their friends and then play with them and then learn along the way. Number two, active learning. That means even if the student is going to be on a home-based learning and there's a game-based package given to the student, there's still learning that take place. Thirdly, it really enhanced the motivation. That means maybe in class the student is very shy to ask other peers or teachers some clarification. But when it comes to gamification, the game-based packages, activities really help the students, help the shy ones to have a motivation to learn something. So when we look at the research background, are there any existing research on the effectiveness of gamification in language learning? Yes, there is. There's a couple of researchers. For example, when it comes to language proficiency, the research by Jin and Hickory in 2018 found that incorporating game-based activities into a Chinese language course resulted in significant gains in students' language skills compared to a traditional method. That means the students felt some motivation when they look at the game-based activities and they wanted to learn some of the language. Another example that talks about recall and retention. This research is done by Keeley in 2005. He has mentioned that learners who engage in a vocabulary learning game-based activity retain more words compared to students who study under traditional study methods. So these are some of the existing research that talks about the effectiveness of gamification in language learning. There's still a long way to go, but the existing research and the upcoming research will help the teachers and the educators and all those curriculum planners to look into the effectiveness and to push the educators to look into the good aspects of gamification. When we look at this cultural, social, economy, and educational factors that affect game techniques, there are a couple of things. Firstly, cultural factors that talk about ethnic group, the cultural sensitivities, diverse cultural context. So all the game-based activities need to take into all these factors in consideration before they plan, design a game. Secondly, when it comes to socio-economic factors, we can say this gamified language learning platforms might need internet access or might need a platform, and some of the students might not have access to that. So we need to look into that also. And thirdly, educational context. For example, children versus adults. Maybe children, they are motivated to this gamification, whereas the adults, they feel that this is not the right platform for them. So the educators really need to carefully consider how to integrate the gamification into their specific educational context. Yeah. So when it comes to acquisition, when I mentioned about engagement and active learning, gamification really increased the level of motivation and participation in language learning activities. So, for example, the learners, when they complete a puzzle, they are like more likely to expose to interact with the target language, all right, and the audience. Second, when it comes to repetition practice, this platform gives a lot of practices through like game mechanics and their level up, earning points. All of this help them to repeat, and the kids are able to retain the knowledge. And coming to contextual learning, this gamification actually gives the learners opportunities to learn language in like context. There's always like the storytelling, there's like physical response, and there's a role playing scenarios. All are embedded in lesson package, embedded in the same game learning platforms. For example, earlier on, my grandma was talking about storytelling. So all these different learning strategies are combined together today in the same platform, and it enhances the students' motivation. So, when we talk about exploring whether it's engagement and motivation really lead to better acquisition, or are there any parallel processes? Yes, when we look at that, there is this sequential relationship. That means the engagement and motivation are often like consider like they are on the same level. That means when the learners are motivated, engaged in the learning of language activities, they are like mostly able to invest more time, more effort in acquiring the language skills. So there's always like a kind of parallel process. Okay. And when it comes to the learner's willingness, the engagement and motivation may increase depending on the learner's willingness when they get themselves exposed to language activities. So these are certain things when we talk about the relationship between gamification and acquisition and retention. So going to next part, are there any limitations? Definitely, there are limitations and challenges when we look at gamification in language learning research. And we are also looking at the challenges in applying these gamification techniques across different linguistic environments and age group. When we look at the limitations, what is a limitation in language learning research? Because we need to have a good and concrete research in order for the gamification to go up to the next level. So we can say when we have enough concrete research, we will be able to motivate the teachers to tap onto gamification when they teach mother tongue. So there is kind of research that talks about language learning. They say currently the research on gamification often lacks some diversity in terms of participants' linguistic backgrounds or educational context. And they also mentioned that there are some issues on the overemphasis of technology. And the research thinks that uh, most of the research on gamification in the language learning focus on the like technology mediated approaches, like language apps and digital performance platforms. And this research may overlook non-digital gamification techniques and effectiveness. So these are some of the limitations which don't give us more research to look into gamification. So when you look at challenges, what are the challenges when we apply these gamification techniques across diverse linguistic environments and age groups? Number one, there's language and cultural reference. Number two will be the age appropriateness. Number three, the motivational factors. And number four is the pedagogical integration. So when I mentioned about this language and cultural reference, it's like these techniques, gamification techniques, must be culturally and linguistically relevant to these learners to engage them, because these learners are from diverse linguistic backgrounds. So the planners, the gamified lesson planners must really put in more effort to make sure that the cultural norms, the language proficiency levels, everything is like well taken care of. There are consistent efforts, but this need to be continued over the years. And this is one of the challenges when we look at the different learners of different linguistic environments and age groups. So when you go to the conclusion, so what this conclusion say? Even though there are many prevailing beliefs and assumptions about gamification, there are promises across various linguistic environment and age group people. Number two, there's pedagogical flexibility. Number three, the careful planning alignment need to be continued for these students, for the learners to have a better learning. So gamification really holds promises for enhancing the language learning across diverse linguistic environment. And researchers and educators, they are looking at limitations and challenges to ensure that the effectiveness of gamification continues and is applicable in different contexts. Thirdly, it also requires more research methodologies to make sure there's cultural sensitivity, um, there's fairness, and there's a proper pedagogical flexibility. So all these efforts need to be continued in order for the gamification techniques and the packages to really go out to all the needs and preferences of different learners. So when there's careful planning, alignment, and all these things are put in place, it is really strongly encouraged that gamification techniques positively enhance the acquisition and retention of mother tongue language skills in children. So I will end my presentation with a small joke. When do we know that a person is really very attracted to gamification? When this particular person award himself badges and rewards just by brushing teeth in the morning. That's how the person is so motivated by this gamification techniques and gamification concept in his or her daily life. So I'll end this presentation and we will look forward to more presentations regarding gamification. Thank you.